Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another reaction of my predictions video. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to my Premier League prediction. If you are new around here though, and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, like in the last one, I got some right, I got some almost right, and I got a couple really badly wrong. But yeah, let's just go straight into the table. So, in 20th position, I thought it would be Brentford. In fact, it was Norwich, and I mean, typical Norwich. I should have put them there realistically. I just saw that they made some good signings in the January transfer window and bought in some half decent players, and I thought maybe that might mean not January transfer window, at the summer transfer window, and I thought that means that they might just go a bit higher, but no, just still bottom and a very poor from there realistically. And Brentford, I mean, they did a lot better, didn't they? They finished a lot higher up the table. I'm not going to say where they finished, unless you probably already know, but I'll get to that when I get to that. Moving on to my 19th, though, is my first one that I got exactly right, that being Watford. I mean, I didn't think that going into it they had the best of defences. I thought maybe there was some decent attacking options up there still with João Pedro and Dennis and Sarr, but their defence I just thought wasn't good enough to be able to keep them up. And I was right. They went down with, I'm pretty sure, one of the worst home records ever. Might be wrong, but yeah, it wasn't a great year for them. And they're going back down to the Championship with Norwich. And in 18th position is where I predicted Norwich to finish. In fact, it was Burnley that finished there. Norwich obviously finished a lot lower down. Burnley kind of surprised me that they finished around that area. I thought that they would finish higher, but yeah, it kind of went a little bit downhill for a bit, but I think it was just because the owners weren't really giving Sean Dyche any money or any chances with buying players. And I mean, they almost stayed up with Mike Jackson, but they didn't quite on the final day. Unfortunately for them, they went down. In my 17th position, I predicted Newcastle. In fact, it was Leeds. I thought this time Newcastle hadn't been taken over, so I thought that they would just about stay in the Premier League, but it did look like they were actually going to get relegated at one point before they got taken over. But since they got taken over, they went right up the table, and my prediction looks very badly wrong now. But yeah, in the end, it did end up finishing Leeds, who I did think would also be a lot higher up the table, but they just kind of had a stinker of a season. It was a bit mad to see them celebrating like they were, even though they did just about stay up, but I suppose they did stay up in the end, so congratulations to them. Moving on to my 16th position now, I predicted it to be Brighton. In fact, it was Everton. That was a bit of a surprise for me. I predicted them to be a bit higher up, but I didn't think Brighton would do as well as they did. They did have a good season. They had their best ever season, I'm pretty sure, in the Premier League, and it shocked me a bit. I thought they would be battling around the bouts near relegation, but they did do really well. I didn't know the squad had it in them, but obviously they did. So yeah, Everton finished there. It was a bit of a surprise. Moving on to my 15th now is another one I got right, which was Southampton. In the end, I thought it was going to be 15th. I thought it would be a pretty average season for them, and I was right. They weren't really battling out for relegation. They were just out of that kind of area, but it still wasn't an amazing season for them. I thought they might kind of lose a bit of, I suppose, momentum, or just not be as good because they lost Danny Ings, and I was right. I didn't think Adam Armstrong would come in and be amazing, and he hasn't really. So 15th, I got that exactly right. Moving on to my 14th was where I predicted Burnley to finish. In fact, it was Aston Villa. I thought Villa would be a bit higher up the table, well, quite a bit higher up the table. And Burnley, I just thought they'd have a half decent enough squad, and maybe I thought could have gone a bit higher. I thought Sean Dyche possibly would have helped him to get higher, but obviously he got sacked, and then it wasn't a great season for them, getting relegated. And I mean, I thought all the teams that would have got promoted would have got relegated, so I didn't expect any other team to get relegated. So yeah, Burnley I thought would be 14th, a bit of a gap there from where they actually finished, about a 4-place gap. But I think the Villa gap's a bit further. I'll get onto that when I get onto that. But yeah, that's a bit of a further gap. Moving on to my 13th now is Everton, where, well, I predicted Everton to finish there. In fact, it was Brentford, the team which I thought would finish bottom. I was 7 places off with that. That's probably the worst one so far. And Everton, I thought they actually would do all right with Rafa Benitez. I didn't really think that they bought in some amazing players. I mean, Donny van de Beek was a good signing for them, trying to think back. Um, but yeah, obviously it kind of went all downhill for them as well. But they luckily survived because, I mean, a team like that shouldn't be in the Championship. They're too big for the Championship realistically. And it would have been a big shock if they did go down. But Brentford, congratulations to them. They really shocked me this season. Didn't think their team really had it in them to get that high because their team isn't amazing on paper, but they did really well. Their manager did a very good job, and they'll have to see if they have second season syndrome, which does seem to happen a lot with teams that get promoted on their second season. Moving on to my 12th position now, I predicted it to be Wolves. In fact, it was Crystal Palace that was there. I was only a couple places off with both of these, and I mean, two pretty much average seasons for pretty much average seasons for both of these teams, Wolves and Crystal Palace. And yeah, in my 11th spot it was Crystal Palace. That's where I thought they'd finish, but in fact it was Newcastle, so they did finish a lot higher than what I expected. I mean, at one point they seemed like they could have possibly gotten low Europa Conference League if they were, because of the way that they were playing, but obviously they did drop down a little bit, which is completely fair. Will be interesting to see what happens with them next season and who they bring in. And in my 10th spot, I predicted it to be West Ham. In fact, it was Wolves, and West Ham were a bit higher up. I didn't think that they'd have as good as a season as what they did the season before, but I mean, they didn't really, but they did better than what I expected. I thought they just kind of slowly fizzled out into like a mid-table team, but in fact, that was Wolves that kind of went into a mid-table team. But yeah, moving on to my 9th, I predicted it to be Leeds. This is a big difference. This is 8 difference. 8th place difference. So I don't know why it's so hard to say. In fact, it was Brighton that finished there, which is another relatively big difference that I predicted. But I just thought Leeds would actually do really well. I don't really know why, looking back on it, because they didn't really bring in some amazing players, but I just thought they'd do really well and keep what's his name, Bielsa. But obviously they didn't keep Bielsa, and now they've got Jesse Marsh in, and maybe he'll do better next season. But we'll have to see with that. And Brighton really did surprise me. Didn't expect them to do like I said as well as they did, but they did. Moving on to my 8th position now, I predicted Aston Villa to finish there, and it ended up being Leicester. Aston Villa, I thought they would finish a lot higher up the table just because they bought in some really good players. They bought in Danny Ings, Buendia. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. I know there was some more, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head. And I mean, at one point it did seem like they were doing alright, but then they started dropping down more and more. Gerrard came in, gave them a little bounce. They went up the table a bit more, and then they kind of started dropping down a little bit more in the end as well. Almost stopped Man City from getting the title, but not quite. And Leicester kind of, in a way, disappointed me a little bit. I thought they would be a bit higher up the table. They were kind of mixing around mid-table for a while, and in the end did end up almost, I say almost, but like, even though there was one position between them and Europe, they didn't really seem like they were going to get Europe at any point, but they did kind of battle up to get 8th in the end, but it wasn't an amazing season for them. And moving on to my 7th position, I predicted Arsenal. In fact, it was West Ham. West Ham did surprise me quite a bit again, getting Europe again, really kind of asserting themselves as a good European side. I didn't expect Jarrod Bowen to do as well as he did. And Arsenal, I thought, would do a bit worse. I thought they would just kind of have a similar season, but a little bit better to last season. But in fact, they did even better than what they did last season. Almost got Champions League, but yeah, obviously, still good season for them. I mean, they're probably a little bit disappointed they didn't get Champions League, but yeah, moving on to my 6th position though, this is where I predicted Spurs to get. In fact, it was Man United. They very much did surprise me. I'll get onto that when I get higher up the table, but Spurs in the end finished a lot higher as well. Well, a bit higher as well, and did get Champions League, so congratulations to them. But yeah, Spurs shocked me a little bit. They started off a bit slow, but in the end they did end up getting top 4, which, I mean, if you said that last season when they were just battling for Conference League, I wouldn't have expected it. But this season they've come in, and Conte's coming after, who was it before? I can't remember who the manager was before. Oh, Nuno leaving. and he's done really well. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get even higher next season if they make some good transfers. And moving on to my fifth position, this is where I predicted Leicester to finish. And in fact, it was Arsenal that finished there. So like I said, they're just outside Champions League. But if you just said that to an Arsenal fan at the start of the season, they probably would have taken it. And Leicester, I did think would do really well. I guess looking back on it, it kind of makes sense why they didn't do as well, because they haven't got an amazing squad. But they were making some half-decent signings, like the likes of Daka. It did seem like they might have got Berardi at one point, but they didn't in the end. And some other people I can't really remember off the top of my head. But I thought they'd do better. They obviously didn't. And Arsenal kind of surprised me a little bit. Moving on to my top 4 predictions, and now I predicted in 4th position to be Chelsea. In fact, it was Spurs that finished there. I mean, I was only one position off with this, so it's not really that big. But I guess I didn't think that Chelsea would do amazingly, even though Lukaku came in. I thought they'd still get top 4, but I thought one team, which I haven't mentioned yet, would get a bit higher up in the table, which now looking back on it, I was very, very wrong with. Moving on to my 3rd position, now this is where it starts getting a bit embarrassing. I predicted Liverpool, and in fact it was Chelsea, and Liverpool finished 2nd. So if you can guess what team I predicted 2nd, yeah, you'll probably be laughing right now. But Liverpool in the end got 2nd, almost got the title, very close, and Liverpool did better than I expected. Moving on to my 2nd prediction now, I predicted Man United, and yeah, looking back on this now, it was very wrong. They finished 6th, and could have easily finished 7th. Well, the way they were playing, I going into it, they got Ronaldo, they got Sancho, they got Varane. I thought maybe that could really do something with them and get them up the table, but obviously not. They bought in Rangnick about midway through season, maybe a bit later, and he didn't really do anything either. It kind of made them play worse, if I'm being honest, and they just kind of started to seep down the table, occasionally getting a win with Ronaldo carrying them realistically. And yeah, I predicted them to get 2nd. They didn't, very obviously didn't. They were probably the most mocked team out of any of the big teams this season. But yeah, moving on to my number 1 position prediction, I did in fact get this one right. I guess you can tell it was Man City, obviously, and I predicted that one right. I just thought that they would be dominant as they were the year before, and might be next season as well, because if they're bringing in Haaland, you never really know. So congratulations to Man City for winning the league. That was a relatively obvious prediction. I mean, that's what I thought Man United would be as well, but obviously not. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Tomorrow's video will be reacting to my Golden Boot and Golden Glove prediction for the Premier League. And then I think the day after that is my team of the season for the Premier League. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, if you are new around here and you have liked the video, please like the video. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.